is a crash course in chess basics. This lecture is for you if you have just learned how to play or just know the basics of the game and want to learn how to win. So I'm just going to go through some of the most important introductory chess patterns to find checkmate, and the more you learn, the more you'll be able to find checkmate. These are checkmates. These are patterns that are very common and happen in a lot of games. So in this position, it's black's turn, and black has checkmate, and this is an important one. It's called the back rank mate. The rook comes down here and checks the king. The king can't go to f2, g2, or h2 because it's blocked by the pawns, and the king can't go to f1 or h1 because the rook also attacks those squares. So this is an example of checkmate. This is also a very important pattern, and it is called the scholar's mate. It is also called the 4-move checkmate or the fool's mate. And in this position, it's white's turn, and white has checkmate in 1 move with queen takes f7. And now the king cannot capture the queen because the bishop defends the queen. And the king can't move here because the black queen is in the way. The king cannot move here because this queen. And the king cannot move here because of the queen. So this is an example of checkmate, and the game's over. If you want to just see how the game started off, it started off with these moves. So you can actually win a lot of games against beginners with this 4-move combination. So if you want to memorize it, that's not a bad idea. Which happens in a lot of games, and it happens here. Black has checkmate in 1 move, and it's black's turn. And this happens when the king is castled on this side of the board, and the pawn right here is pushed up 1 square, which leaves these 2 squares open for the enemy pieces to sit there without being attacked. Because if a pawn was right here, it would be able to capture the bishop or the queen. But in this position, what is useful? Oh, sorry, there's a glitch. Okay, in this position, the bishop here guards this square, and the queen does too, so the queen comes in, and it's checkmate. And here you can see the king cannot move here because of the rook. And whenever you're trying to see if it's checkmate, you just take the king and you look at every square that the king can go to, and you decide if the king can or cannot go there. If the king has no squares that it can go to, it's checkmate. So the king cannot go here because of the pawn. If the king tries to capture the black queen, then the bishop will capture back. And if the king tries to go here, it can't because of the pawn. And also, if the king goes to h1 right here, that would not work because the queen would capture it. And so in positions like this, you just want to think about how you can set up checkmates like this. If you can, that's how you're going to get them, is you have to move the pieces into squares like that. Alright, in this position, you have checkmate in 1 move with black. And with all these puzzles, if you want to pause it, you should pause it and try and figure it out yourself. But I'm just going to go through the answers. So in this position, this king right here is checkmated. I had to make white's move because it was white's turn in that position. But here, queen to b2 is checkmate. And so the first thing is, if the king tries to capture the queen, this pawn can capture back. The pawn is moving this way, so it can capture 1 diagonal. So it's defended by, the queen is defended by the pawn, so the king cannot capture back. The king cannot move here because of the queen, and the king cannot move here because of the queen. So this is checkmate. And this is these types of patterns where the queen is against the wall with the king here. The queen has cornered the king, or the queen has got the king against the wall. As long as it's defended, it's usually checkmate. So this pawn, if this was a bishop right here, this would still be checkmate. As long as something is defending the queen, then it's checkmate. If this king was over here and this pawn was gone, then it would still be checkmate because the king would defend the queen. As long as the king cannot capture the queen because the king would be captured back, then it's checkmate. If you think about it like this, the game is over here, but if the white king were to capture the black queen like this, and the pawn captured back, then white will have lost their king, which means the game's over. In this position right here, it is checkmate. Black can attack the white king and you have checkmate in 2 moves. And so the first thing we should notice is that this king right here cannot cross this line. This rook, the black rook right here, creates a line and it cannot be crossed. The king cannot go to any one of these squares because it will be captured. Okay, the second thing to notice is that even if the king could cross this one line, the second line here can also not be crossed. So we see like there's a huge barricade being built. And so right now the king can go to, any one of, well really, most of the squares below these 2 lines right here. Okay, so now it's black's turn, and if you see the move, great. Rook to g2 check. And now we see the point of the rooks being next to each other like this is that if the king tries to go up, it's captured by this rook, and so the king is forced to go down. So you see the squares that I'm highlighting right here are all the squares the white king cannot go to. So now the king goes back here, and the rook comes here, and it's checkmate.